Just like that, looks like we're gonna have a really wet week now. I've heard a lot of interesting stories today. Not much with like drones and stuff from what I gather in terms of law changes and stuff anyways. Still just waiting for those new regulations to be pushed out. I think the only thing I read that was interesting that's supposed to be like a quote landmark, the very first is flying things like beyond visual line of sight. But it actually made me think about things like the Mavic Pro, because apparently today there was an update for the firmware. And I'm guessing based on what I read, this is supposed to be the update that forces you to go online or whatever, like for the first time to confirm like where you're flying, like in certain places. So anyone else actually try this yet? I haven't tried it yet because I can't, fly it anyways, like around like the regular areas here, so I can't really tell. It'd be kind of interesting to see how it is like for anyone else who's actually tried it. I guess now we can really see if it's really doom and gloom like for the drones, because I know a lot of people are saying like they wouldn't want to buy a drone where the company restricts them from actually like determining where you can fly and all that. So it'd be kind of interesting to see how it actually is for the people that are actually doing the upgrade right now. And to my knowledge too, you don't have to actually upgrade it, so it's basically optional, but you're basically missing out on any potential future features or whatever that come as a result of that too. I probably will try it just to see what it is like later on, but again, it's a matter of whether or not I'm going to be able to fly it, like where and when. With all the news about the drones and hoping like, if they'll have common sense to make the laws a lot better, it was nice reading some of these good types of news and videos. Anyone else see this video about the America's Got Talent? I believe this lady, she's deaf, and she was going to try to like sing, and at the same time she's playing an instrument, so everyone's wondering, okay, if you're deaf, how can you do this, like possibly like maintain the rhythm when you can't hear what you're doing? But apparently she did it, and that's kind of awesome to hear. Because for me, like reading stories like these or watching things like these, I mean, look, some people like these, they have it way worse in terms of their handicaps or disability, but look at what they can do in life. So I love like watching stuff like that as well. And again, for me, that's usually why I like exploring different cultures, events and all that, because it gives you such a different perspective of what other people go through. Man, I'm starting to think like even like people like that Gardner, that's what they need to do as like a part of their job, to actually go around places that they're not used to learn about the cultures and how people live. That way you don't have like a closed mind. Actually, I think I had some viewers that are in Chicago. Like I'm not there, but I guess on July 22nd at a Grant Park in Illinois, I guess you guys are gonna see tens of thousands of people outside all of a sudden, because it's gonna be like a Pokemon Go event. I'm kind of interested in seeing how it is. Can anyone take pictures and show me what it's like? For stuff like this, I'm usually interested to see like, people who don't actually participate in the industry, like to see how they react to it, like culturally speaking. And James, you were asking how long I get to fly my Mavic nowadays. I mentioned before, if you don't see it in my vlog, I didn't fly it basically. Because in general, for me to fly right now, I have to go like really beyond the middle of nowhere, like say a hiking trip and all that. And obviously that requires a bit of a preparation and planning, like everything from my time, my schedule, things like the weather, for example, like that has to all come in place. So I can't just like, like what I did before. I flew it every day to learn how to fly the drone, learn what like the best picture settings and stuff are. Like I can't do that nowadays, obviously. Unless they magically like change the laws and all that all of a sudden, I mean, that would be a miracle. I think it would be a blackberry or something like that, correct? Oh, and about the question about the ATTI, I know what the ATTI is like in general, like mode function wise. I wasn't sure if the word itself was like say an acronym, or is just like a short way of saying something else. Like is it like LOL, like laughing out loud, it stands for something like ATTI, or is it literally just an abbreviation of sorts for attitude? Like that I've never actually figured out. I was just reading it online, that's what it came up as. It just means attitude mode, like in terms of the name. That's what I was trying to figure out. What are the birds like during the rain? I wonder if that's the same bird you guys told me before that I saw like up in the tree, like breaking the branches. So for the interesting drone stuff, I read in Foremost, like in Canada here, basically they were one of the first approved areas so that people can fly their drones beyond the visual line of sight. But apparently here, I guess the company is, again, like the first in Canada to get Transport Canada's approval that they can fly around this area safe, just because I guess the weather, the area, everything, it makes it ideal to do any type of practice. So I guess that's good overall, although again, this is for commercial, I guess, purposes, for people to practice, it's not for recreational flyers. But it just makes me think again how in many ways, like me personally, I just feel the people who are running the Transport Canada, all that, it feels like they're so, I don't know, technically behind, whether it's like in terms of mindset or just the way it is nowadays. Because like even like for me, like when I'm flying a drone, like common sense, like if you're flying like say around a tree, even though I can see it technically like with a little speck, isn't it better like in that sense to look through a goggle if you're flying like say around the tree? Like you don't have it in your sight always, like that's actually better to say look down at the screen so you see where it's flying. Like in that case you don't need goggles, like again it just makes more sense to look at the screen so you know where you're flying as opposed to like, you know, oh that dot, where is it? That's why I made the comment too, like in many ways, like if you guys remember, for those of you who watched, like when I went to that gaming expo, I showed you guys like that virtual boy to show like, you know, people like in like tech or people that play video games, like they're kind of used to stuff like this, so it's nothing revolutionary, whereas this makes it sound like in the mindset of people who work in Transport Canada, they think it's so dangerous, like to be able to, you know, look at your screen and being able to monitor it at the same time in a safe way. Like in my opinion, again, it's actually more safe in many ways to actually look at the screen in many cases, as opposed to like just looking up in the air. Maybe everyone else is different, but I know for me when I'm flying, if it's like an open field like this, for example, I find it's a lot better to look at the screen and start flying. The only time I find it's actually better to look at like say the actual drone flying is if you're going through really tight areas, like say you're gutsy and you're trying to fly in between trees or this really tiny opening. Like in that sense, you kind of have to look at the drones to make sure, because it could be deceptive, like what you see in the screen, how close they are. But in general, like overall flying, I usually find anyways, looking at things like the screen's a lot more effective to fly safely. It makes me think in many ways, like they're thinking of drones way too much as if it's exactly like say flying a big airplane or something like that. And in my opinion, it's not the same thing. Like I've never actually flown an actual airplane before, so you could argue like, hey, I don't know what I'm talking about, like comparing it to that way. But just the way it functions, like the way you control the drones and all that, like you don't have that same type of control, the same type of mentality as to how you're flying it. Like just an over exaggeration. I highly doubt any pilot has ever flown something like through this, correct? Like here, based on the situation as a drone flyer, I would alternate. Like if I'm flying through like this tight, I don't know, tree here, like this probably requires me to look at the actual drone, because it could be really deceptive in terms of like how like close the objects are. And in my opinion, that's how a lot of people like crash, for example. They try to be gutsy like that, and it's kind of like in many ways kind of like I don't know, mirrors on a car, like how they say objects are closer than they appear. But if I'm flying out in the open, like say I flew up high here, like that makes absolutely no sense to tell the person like, no, you should focus more on looking at the actual drone. Like to that, if it's a big open huge like whatever space, like it makes more sense in my opinion to look at the actual screen. Because I can even imagine, like again, I'm not a commercial flyer, but I could imagine even for like buildings and stuff like that, when people are doing inspections, it makes way more sense to look at the screen. And it's just kind of surprising how the people in charge in general don't have the common sense to realize that. Again, maybe it's just too much comparison, thinking like a drone is exactly like only like the things that they know. It makes me think again, like I said earlier on, maybe it should be a requirement for people like in that position, like of a job, to actually get out there and experience various things in life so you're more open-minded. Isn't that why they force you to go on field trips and stuff in school, so you have a better like the open mind of the world and all that? Okay, the sunlight decided to come out just like that. Again, the random weather, so like if I was to fly a drone right now, like this, the weather has to be predictable if I'm going like hiking in the middle of nowhere and stuff like that. I guess that is like a homemade beaver dam in many ways, huh? Anyways, see you guys later.